Everybody, I'd like to call to order this May 11, 2015 meeting of the Columbus Municipal School Board. At this time, we will have invocation offered by Jason Spears, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Cadet Technical Sergeant Natasha Strong of the Columbus High School ROTC. Mr. Spears.
Please bow your heads with me, please. Our Father, we come to you this evening thanking you so much for this great school. We thank you for these children that have worked so hard and have reached such great achievements, and we just lift them up to you. And thank you for the parents, and thank you for the teachers. We thank you for everyone who's played a role in their success. And Lord, we just ask you continue to watch over us and guide us in the way that only you can. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now we will ask for Cadet Technical Sergeant Natasha Strong to come forward.
Please stand. Attention, salute, pledge. Our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we do have a quorum established tonight. All of our trustees are present. Next, we have open forum. We have one person who has signed up for open forum. At this time, we'd ask that Ms. Quay Austin please come forward.
Good afternoon, trustees of the Columbus Municipal School District. Thank you very much for, receiving me, but I come this afternoon talking about advocating for children of special needs. And for those of you who know me, and I've lived here for quite a long time. Is it
Ms.
not
Austin,
on,
it doesn't sound like it's on.
Okay.
Just tap it. There you go.
Oh, maybe I'm not speaking loud.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. All right. Most of you know that I advocate for children for special needs, particularly because I have a child of my own. There are many children throughout this district whose parents don't know the way. And the reason I say that they don't know the way is that when I can stand in Kroger and people will come up to me over the vegetables and they'll say, "How did you do it?" And my case was a little bit different than theirs. So you all are the trustees and the stewards of, say, education here in say, Columbus. And one of the things that I would like to ask you particularly is to pay particular attention, whether or not it is with your money, whether or not it is with hiring of staff, or whether or not it is providing resources for parents. And I know that you say, in an age of information, it's out there. And I know that Columbus at one time was part of a lawsuit called Matty T. That is not why I'm here at all. But please, parents need help. Parents need help in more than one way. Your superintendent is going to need your help in providing resources. I love this district. I plan to continue to live here. And one of the things that I want to say, Columbus is a great place, but we do have a population here whose parents need guidance in order to have them serve. So when you make your decisions, I highly encourage you to take a particular look at services for special needs children, and also by helping their parents. And I know that there are resources out there. The internet doesn't even tell it all because they don't know where to start. So if you can point them in the right direction and be able to provide those resources and help to provide an adequate and appropriate education for special needs children in our community, please join on with our superintendent and do so. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Austin. At this time, Board, we're at item number 5, which is adoption of the agenda. This does require an action. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? It has been motioned and second that we adopt the agenda as it is printed. Is there any discussion?
Make a motion that we amend the agenda.
There's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor at this time, Mr. Jones, to adopt the agenda as it is printed. Do you have a change that you'd like to
Yes, I have a
recommend?
second.
What is it, the amendment? That
The
you-
amendment to amend the agenda to include the resolution for the Columbus Lounge Recreation, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, the Columbus Housing Authority.
Okay. So, Mr. Spears, you have a motion to,
Right, I'll rescind my motion to include the amendment to the agenda.
okay, and who had the second, Mr. Lostenheiser?
He has a second.
Okay, Mr. Jones, will you rescind your second?
Yes, I rescind
Okay,
my
so now your motion is that we amend the agenda to include resolutions for the Columbus Lounge Recreational Authority, for the Columbus Housing Authority, for the Boys and Girls Club, and the YMCA for transportation agreements. Is that correct?
Correct.
May I
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
point out that that will be an expansion of Roman numeral 10A, where there's consideration to approve the transportation services agreement. That could be A, 1, 2, 3, and 4, those
Okay.
resolutions under there, if we would make the amendment to the agenda to say that, Mr. Jones.
Okay.
So, Mr. Lostenheiser, for your record,
I've got it marked in the appropriate place.
okay, very well. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor of adopting the agenda with the amendment, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that to approve minutes. Board, we do have a set of minutes from April 13, 2015 to approve. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fisher. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the Office of the Superintendent. The first item is the athletic facility update, consideration to approve soccer and football practice field advertisement for bids. At this time, we'll ask Mr. Kevin Stafford to please come forward.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
I come up before y'all tonight really to take the next step in our soccer field addition out at the athletic complex to gain y'all's permission to go ahead and advertise for bids. For our last meeting, we would like to go ahead and advertise tomorrow and next week on the 19th, and then take bids after that on June the 10th, and then potentially after that, hopefully bids come within the funding and we'll move forward with a construction project. But tonight, I'd like to come before you to request permission to advertise for those bids.
Okay. Board, are there any questions for Mr. Stafford? This will require an action to approve the advertisement for bids. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Spears?
As far as when we get the numbers back in, you said it's around June the 10th, 11th, something along those lines. If everything falls outside the budget or the allotted amounts, then we would be able to go back and rebid or try to
Try to get back with that
change
budget.
things around if needed.
The way that we've structured the bid is the base bid, we anticipate will come within your funding. If all things considered, we have contingencies in those. In your original budget, we have contingencies that we hope to give back to you in the long run. But we also have additive alternates that were never in the project to begin with. So if it comes in under, vice versa, we'll have the ability to expand that as well. Obviously, I'll bring all this information back to you on the 12th, and we'll talk through it at that time. Even if it comes in over, I'll come back with ideas of how to get it back under as well. So, but yeah, it won't be if it comes in over, we'll have to do some scrambling, to say the least. I hope that's not the case.
Board, are there other questions for Mr. Stafford? If not, all in favor of approving the advertisement for bids, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. Thank you,
you.
Mr. Stafford. Next item on the agenda is that of special recognition of CMSD. Dr. Hickman.
Yes, first I want to take a time to recognize Stokes Beard. One of the things that we're going to do next year at Stokes Beard is have an animation studio, and we're going to broadcast it throughout our whole district to get messages out, to get themed, to teach character and those kind of things. And we want to real quick show a quick vignette of, this is actually groundbreaking. This is the person that helped us develop these characters, also did the Rugrats for your older crowd people, if you remember the cartoon, the Rugrats, and the movie, the Rugrats. And so this is, the animation is all done by our children in our district at an elementary school. So let's see, this is the first round of it. We're going to get better, but this is what they came up with. Oh.
Hey, Gerald. My teacher showed us how to pick up our laptops today. Why, I already know how to do that. Computers are very expensive, and I want to make sure they last a while. Okay, because I want my personal class laptop to look fresh all year long. She said to never pick it up like this or like this, because it will break the hinges or the screen. I never thought about it like that. I usually just grab them on the fly, like this. Both hands on the bottom part. Oh, that's neat and responsible. My teacher said to never, never work on the computer while we eat our snacks. I really like to eat and surf the net at the same time. What's more important? Munching on a snack and having a messed up laptop, or having a fresh laptop? Well, I never thought about it like that. I guess I want a fresh laptop all year long. And she said to always wash our hands before using them. She said to never, never, never have a drink beside the computer. If it spills on it, it will go under the keys and make them quit working. I'm so glad you informed me. It makes sense. She taught us to never, never pick with the keys like this. I always wondered why the keys were always missing on laptops. Remember, there are always consequences for our actions. I am so glad we had this conversation. You changed my outlook on eating at the computers and being a responsible laptop owner. Gerald, we have to spread the word. Laptop responsibility is the way to go. This will save our district money on new computers. And maybe we could request some other technology gadgets with all that saved dough. Cool. See you later, Gerald. You too.
And so our kids, let's give them a round of applause. Our kids, that's not me. Our kids will write the script, and they also will move the animation of the characters and develop the platform. So that's going to be just a start of what we're going to have throughout our district. And so that's kind of a good thing. All right, Ms. Lenora, if you can please go with the rest of the recognition.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Hickman. This is always the absolute best time of the board meeting, where we have the opportunity to recognize our students and staff for all of the wonderful things that they are doing here in the Columbus Municipal School District. So we will begin our recognitions tonight by recognizing 3 groups of students from Columbus Middle School who participated in the Destination Imagination State Tournament. And the students who we will recognize tonight won first place in their particular categories, and they will go on to compete at global finals in Knoxville, Tennessee, the week of May 20th through 23rd. They are sponsored by Ms. Sylvia Collins, gifted teacher at Columbus Middle School. So we will begin recognizing students in the technology category. Students, when I call your name, if you would, please come forward to receive your certificate and be recognized with our Board of Trustees. We will start with Sam Yarborough. Daryl Montez Johnson. Teja McCrary. Cohen Velick. Sophia Oswalt. Kerrigan Clark. And Maya Rush. Congratulations to the technology team. The next team we have is our fine arts team. That team consists of Sebastian Rojas Rincon, Zachary Wilson, Janisa Williams, Caitlin Lowe, Tiara Macon, Essence Hughes, and Krishana Jethro. Congratulations to the fine arts team. And the final Destination Imagination team that will be representing Columbus Middle School participated in the Structure Challenge. Congratulations to Jacob Williams, Tyrese Jones, Eric Evans, Marion Turner, Amaris Banks, Winter Brooks, and Kayla Hairston. Congratulations to each of the students participating in Destination Imagination. Okay. Students, if we can get you to shift over some of you come in front of on this side so that we can get a group picture, please. Congratulations, guys. And we will be anxious to see how they place when they get to Destination Imagination. A big thing is seeing their team name on the screen, so we can't wait to see how it all turns out once they get to Knoxville. The next set of recognitions that we have tonight, we are finishing up with Science Fair. At this time, we will recognize our elementary students who competed in the lower fair at Mississippi State University on April the 9th. At this time, we would like to recognize these students who placed first in their particular category. And when I call your name, students, please come forward. First, we have Jenny Evans from Stokes Beard, Karina Patel from Stokes Beard, from Cook Fine Arts Magnet School, we have Alina Garcia, Rachel Ibarra, Elijah Ibarra, and Elijah won Best of Fair overall. From From Franklin Academy, we have Caden Montgomery, Jordan Poindexter, Kaylee Shambly, and Sarah Hollis, who won Best Affair. Congratulations to all of our science fair winners. And students, if we can get you to come over and stand in front of the board so that we can get a picture of you all. Come on. Congratulations, students. And if you all will remember, earlier this year, we recognized students from Stokes Beard who participated in the fall semester stock market game. And these were students in Miss Cornwall's gifted class. Now we are recognizing students who won the spring semester. So we all might need to go over to Stokes Beard and see what's happening with financial investments over there. Congratulations to Sydney Holt. If Sydney and Karina would come forward, they placed second. And Javon Hopkins, Zion Johnson, and Henry Dismuke placed third. Congratulations to these students. Congratulations, guys. The next recognition that we have tonight, each year the Link recognizes educators across Lowndes County, and we are proud that Marcia Hill, one of our teachers at Sale Elementary School, was named Link Elementary School Educator of the Year. So congratulations to Mrs. Hill. As you all know, we have worked this year to recognize teachers at each of our school locations, and we will wrap up those recognitions tonight with representatives from McKellar, Sale, and Stokes Beard. So teachers, when I call your name, if you would please come forward to be recognized. First, we have Miss Melanie Ford representing McKellar Technology Center. And Ms. Ford, Mr. Bray recognized Ms. Ford. He said, in addition to being a registered nurse with 19 years experience in direct patient care, Melanie Ford is also a national board certified teacher, completing her 14th year teaching medical technology at McKellar Technology Center. Melanie was instrumental in establishing the first medical professions program in the state of Mississippi at McKellar 3 years ago. Her medical profession students earn college credit in health-related occupations, prerequisite courses such as human anatomy, physiology, and microbiology. She completes ACT prep coursework and also complete the skills and clinical hours necessary to sit for the Certified Nursing Assistant exam. Mrs. Ford's medical technology students take the MS CPAS 2 test each spring and have placed in the top 10% of all medical technology programs in Mississippi for the past 10 years. Thank you so much for the job that you do. The next teacher that we will recognize is Miss Jessica Moore from Sale Elementary School. And Ms. Long said that she would like to recognize Ms. Jessica Moore. Even though she has only taught for 3 years, Ms. Moore has shown a dedication to our school and students. Her enthusiasm for teaching and drive to be a continuous learner is infectious. She is loved and respected by her students and colleagues. Congratulations, Ms. Moore. And the final teacher that we will recognize is from Stokes Beard, and that's Miss Debbie Murray. We can get Miss Murray to come forward. Ms. Gardner states that Ms. Murray is an overachiever. She wears multiple hats with finesse and grace. She is a quick study and motivated to learn beyond the status quo. She has learned to delegate the concept of teamwork first and respond accordingly to adverse situations. She has a sense of humor that is both witty and necessary to complete her role as curriculum coordinator. And she said that it is with her pleasure and honor that she celebrates Ms. Murray's accomplishment and growth for the 2014-2015 school year. To each of you, thank you so much for the dedication and service to the students of our district.
That brings us to item number C, update on our district goals. Dr. Hickman.
Okay, Ms. Lenore, if we can start with the reading, third grade reading scores.
Tonight, we are going to provide results from the recent third grade literacy-based promotion from the summative assessment that was given to our students in third grade. And we will start out by providing district results that were reported to the Columbus Municipal School District from the Mississippi Department of Education. We had 81% of our third graders to pass the third grade summative assessment, and 19% of our students were not successful on that particular assessment. We did test 357 students, and that breaks down to 288 pass and 69 students who were not successful. Now we would like to share with you assessment results by school, and we can see that Cook tested 102 students. 73 of those students passed, 29 failed. We have identified 5 students on the bubble, and we will talk about the bubble students a little bit later in the presentation. And we did not have any students there to qualify for a good cause exemption. From Fairview, we tested 50 students, 40 passed, 10 did not pass, 0 bubble students, but we have 4 to qualify for good cause exemption. From Franklin Academy, 61 students were tested, 54 of the students passed, 7 did not. 2 students are classified as bubble students, 0 qualifying for good cause exemption. From Sale, we tested 74 students, 66 students passed, 8 failed, 3 are considered bubble students, and 0 for good cause exemption. From Stokes Beard, we tested 70 students, 55 passed, 15 failed, 5 qualify as bubble students, and we have 1 for good cause exemption.
Do we want to clarify bubble and good cause, please?
When we identified the bubble students, we looked at students, the cut score for the test was 926. So we looked at students who fell 7 to 10 points away from meeting the 926 cut score. The good cause exemptions, the Mississippi Department of Education, as a part of the Literacy-Based Promotion Act, there are several exemptions that the state allows for us to have in order for students to be able to bypass the test, and but they have to qualify and meet those particular criteria that's set forth by the Mississippi Department of Education, and that's contained within that law. Okay, so after the results were released on Friday, and prior to that, we were determining what the next steps are going to be within the Columbus Municipal School District. We have worked towards notifying the parents of the results. You probably heard on Friday that the system was bogged down, that MDE did not anticipate the amount of traffic that actually was logging into the system, so it caused the system to slow down quite a bit on Friday. So we started on Friday morning trying to pull the reports to be able to send to parents, but this week we are having conferences with the parents of students who were unsuccessful on the test, and it is our intention to meet with each and every one of the students identified. This week, we are also working to provide intensive remediation and interventions based on the identified reading deficits. We've already identified the bubble students. We talked about those students. Those are the ones that are 7 to 10 points away from the 926 cut score. And also, those students have been assigned to high-quality reading teachers within the buildings who will direct teach the skills in which these students, we have identified that these students are having difficulties with. Also, there is a retest opportunity for these students in our district. On May 18th or the 19th, we will go back and retest any student who was unsuccessful on the assessment May 18th or 19th here in the district. We are also planning a summer academy, and we already know who those students are that will attend the Intense Summer Program June 1 through 30 of this school year. Currently, we have 8 teachers identified, and we are looking at grouping our students based on the skill deficits that they have. They will be in classes of 8 to 9 students. That number could be lower depending on how many actually pass the test on May 18th through 19th. So we're hoping that the class sizes will be much smaller than the 8 to 9 students, so that these students can receive intense remediation during the summer school. And we are planning to work with these students for 22 days during the summer. The plan is we will work on the skill deficits, and weekly we will assess using STAR. And we're using STAR because that is a measure similar to the third grade summative assessment, and we can be able to gauge the students' progress from that STAR assessment as we assess them each week. The students will be given a final retest opportunity June 29th through 30th. Once they are given that final retest opportunity, that is where it is determined if students will actually remain in third grade and not promote to the fourth grade. So we have 2 more opportunities for our students to be successful on this assessment. And finally, we are also looking at allowing students to check out laptops to use after the morning summer academy session, And we want to be able to do that so that they can continue to work with intervention program that we have that we're using within our district. So those are the steps that we are looking at from this point forward for our students who were unsuccessful on the third grade summative assessment.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Lenore. Board, are there questions? Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Hickman, and we look forward to making even more strides with regards to the third grade reading gate.
Yeah, we
and
had
assessing our students.
We had a good meeting with the principals today, and they really talked about some of the interventions that they're putting in place, and they had already contacted majority of the parents, and they already had isolated those students and started intervening. So we're very hopeful. We want to make sure that not one child is lost through this law, and so we're going to do everything that we can to ensure the success of our children.
So the next item on the agenda is that of student attendance report, which correlates to goal number 1.
Madam President, Dr. Hickman, other board members, you do see our attendance report for the month of April and the months that fall previous to April. You see we did not reach our district goal this month of 95%, but we were very close, 94.33. What we will do with this information, we will track those students that did fail the third grade reading gate test to see if there is any correlation to their attendance results, and see if that had an impact on them failing that test. Also, we'll continue to work with principals and members of their staff to see if we can come up with some strategies as we go into the 15-16 school year to improve our attendance and meet those goals.
Board, are there any questions regarding the student attendance report? All right. Next item is that of the dropout report.
Ms. Lenore?
For the month of April, we had one student to drop out, and that reason was because of compulsory school age. So we had one for the month of April.
Are there any questions regarding the dropout report? All right. The next item is the school climate survey update. There's one for students, and then there's another for parents. Items 4 and 5 under C.
The school climate survey, we are at the point of releasing the survey. There is information on the agenda, consideration to approve the agreement tonight, and once, if the board approves that agreement, we will be ready with the survey as soon as that's done. The student survey will explore topics such as classroom environment, expectations and rigor, supportive relationships, student engagement, and STEM. So those are the areas that that survey will gauge.
One of the things we wanted to make sure we went with a scientific survey instead of one that we came up with questions, so that we can be consistent and really have good data that leads to our decision making.
And we will have results from the surveys at the June meeting.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lenore, if I could go back just one item for the dropout report, and this may not be directly related to the dropout, but for high school seniors who are vying to graduate for this year, have we identified students who may be struggling? Are we incorporating those alternate pathways to graduation right now? Do we have quite a bit of students who are struggling right now?
We have identified those students, and we have exhausted all of the avenues that the Mississippi Department of Education has provided in regards to the alternate options for graduation. If you will remember the original list that we gave, I don't want to give a number, but there were quite a few students, and I believe the last time that we checked that list, we were at 17 students, I do believe. So we have narrowed that number down quite a bit. And so we are looking at each and every single option. Retest scores from the last SATP came in on Friday. So we're continuing down until the last minute to work with those students that are still on that list.
All right, thank you for that. The next item is that of teacher attendance report, which correlates to district goal number 1.
Madam President, as you see, our district did not meet the 95% goal, but we did have the majority of our sites, except for 2, to reach 95%. And any teacher that has any individual issues, those administrators in the buildings will note that as part of their M-STAR evaluation.
Board, do we have any questions with regard to teacher attendance? All right, thank you, Mr. Shannon. The next item is that of the CMSD safety report. There are 3 areas: the staff report, the student discipline report, and the student discipline infractions by the month.
The staff safety report is there for you to review. We did have a few instances or accidents during the month of April. All of those were addressed. We did have some safety training for our bus drivers this past month, and as we continue into the summer and the end of the school year, we will hit those categories that we did see a spike in for this school year to make sure that our staff members do receive the proper training in those areas. For the student discipline report, although our numbers are down as compared to last year, we do see areas that we can improve on. They continue to be tardies, and we are hoping that as we move into some modified block scheduling at the high school, those areas will be cut down because there won't be as many transitions for kids to be tardy during the day. Also, through the things that we're doing within our district with our counselors and the programs that we've got in place, we do want to make sure we address some of those behavioral issues through small group and individual counseling with our staff. Cutting class is a category that we have mostly at the high school, with kids not being in the place they're supposed to be, and with the supervision that we're having now at the high school level with Mr. Johnson and his staff, we do feel like those areas are being addressed.
With regards to the bus incidents, Mr. Shannon, I know the bus drivers had training last month, so will it take another month or, well, we only have this month. Maybe next month we'll be able to see, hopefully, that it took a nosedive with regard to incidents on the buses.
We do feel like that training was beneficial. It was provided by MSBA, but we feel like we'll get a better bang for our buck or have more of an impact if we do that on the front end at the beginning. So we do want that training replicated this summer before school starts, and maybe we can start implementing those expectations from the beginning, and our numbers won't grow as we move forward.
All right, thank you. Board, are there questions with regards to the discipline report? Okay. If not, that brings us to the monthly policy review update, which is for information only. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a schedule. Is that right, Ms. Lenore? There's a proposed schedule for that committee to address policy concerns for the district, and that is for information only. Next item on the agenda is that of consideration to approve the proposed 2015-2016 Board of Trustees meeting schedule. Board, this does require an action. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the consent agenda items. Board, we have had the opportunity to review all of the items that make up the consent agenda. This will require an action. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the Office of Personnel. The first item on the agenda is item A, consideration to approve the job description for Director of Academic Support Services. Board, this will require an action. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion we not approve the job description for the Director of Academic Support Services.
Is there a second? Is there a second? It has been seconded by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Spears?
Aside from the job description and wrangling around numbers to support and substantiate why it needs to occur within the district, there hasn't been any substance put forth that this will bring value within the district.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spears. Is there any other discussion?
Yes. And what was put forth to add value is, first of all, this position will help facilitate our special education program. A lot where our parents continue to voice a need for support for our special education. This position also covers support for our counselors. And actually, Board, if you guys remember, because it's throughout the tenure of you guys being board members, we actually used to have 4 assistant superintendent positions. We had an assistant superintendent of elementary, I think Dr. Liddell was there. We had an assistant superintendent of secondary, which was Sullivan. We had an assistant superintendent of special education, which was Brown. And we had an assistant superintendent of special programs, which was Shannon. And so what we did was we already as a district, we have cut all those positions and we're down to 1 assistant superintendent. And so I'm not asking for another assistant superintendent position. I'm asking for a director level position, which everybody throughout the state has, that helps facilitate and covers, manages and implements our special education programs, and also our counseling services. If you look at our kids receiving scholarships, if you look at our kids receiving proper guidance for counseling services, if you look at all those things that are lacking throughout our district, this is the position which is, most districts have 2 separate positions, but this is 1 position combined, and it alleviates the top-heavy part that we have from all those other assistant superintendents. The other thing is it doesn't cost the district because of closing 2 positions. Actually, closing 4, we're not filling 4 positions. We're going to close 2 and not fill 2 other. So it more than covers the cost for this position. This position also was covered under federal funds, so it doesn't come out of our local fund base. And so this is a needed position, and I think just like the young lady expressed earlier in open forum about the need that we really need to pay attention to our special population. We cannot ignore any of our population of students. Your charge as a board members are to educate every single child that comes within our district. And therefore, that they need to have the proper tools and resources in order for that to happen. And so that's why I'm asking for this position, not only to cover our special needs population, but also, again, our regular needs population when you look at our counseling services from a K-12 perspective. And that's something that we're lacking throughout our district.
Board, does anyone else have any discussion or anything that they would like to say at this time? So we have Mr. Spears' motion on the table not to approve this position, and Mr. Lotzenheiser has made the second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising the right
Madam
hand.
President, I have a question for Dr. Hickman.
Mr. Jones?
The position that we're creating, or that you want to create, the 2 positions that you're doing away with, this person will be doing that job?
This person will be doing those 2 positions that we eliminated because we didn't have a need for those 2. This person will be fulfilling that role or supervising that role. We have another person that's already there as an assistant special education director that should be fulfilling those roles already. And then also we have roles that are not filled, that are not there, the other district has when you talk about facilitating counseling services from a K-12 perspective. And I can get out the data. I mean, if you look at our kids as far as scholarships, as far as the percentage of kids that go to 4-year colleges versus community colleges, if you look at all those services, the guidance, we have a problem with our district where someone is advising our kids to take, and these are teachers' kids to take the 21 option opt-out. That was not designed for kids to graduate early under a 21 option program. And so there's a lot of services that we're lacking for our children within our district. And you guys have charged me with being the expert of looking at my organization, setting an organization chart, fulfilling roles and putting positions in place that will facilitate these roles. And so, you know, to really go against this need that we have in our district after you guys know that we have a need, it's you know, it's kind of a question of roles as far as board members of how you give me the opportunity to really help provide for our students within our district.
Mr. Jones, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Mr. Spears?
Okay, so based on your analysis that you just presented, which is different than what you presented to the board before, for starters, under the current scale, we have an assistant superintendent of secondary education, we have an assistant superintendent of elementary education, and we have an assistant superintendent of federal and special programs, which is currently a position that is occupied. The other two have been vacant for a period of time. Now, you told the board that the reason that we needed this position is you were going to eliminate 2 positions based off of it being case managers, and you just said that you're eliminating these positions to fulfill the monetary need to supply that particular position.
I understand I understand what you're saying, but actually
I'm just repeating what you've said.
But you-
Excuse me, Dr.
you
Hickman.
actually didn't.
Dr. Hickman, excuse me. So, Mr. Spears, do you have a direct question for the superintendent?
I don't have a question other than could he clarify why we've heard one thing and now we're hearing something different?
Dr.
Okay.
Hickman?
So what I said was there are 2 current positions that are filled. Am I correct?
Yes,
There are 2 positions are right now case managers positions.
yes,
Those are positions that we're closing.
yes.
Now, the assistant superintendent, what I articulated was we have no intentions of filling assistant superintendent positions, which makes our district top-heavy. That's what I said. Those positions are currently unfilled, and we have no plans to fill them. What I said was, in the past, through your tenures as board members, that we used to have up to 4 assistant superintendents, and I named them, and obviously these individuals don't work here anymore but 1. And so we're down to 1 assistant superintendent, which is fine, but there are still responsibilities that need to be done. And so what I proposed was to hire a director's level position,
Right.
combined other roles
Yes.
that this person is doing, where other districts, there's more than 1 directors that fulfill this position. And they handle the responsibilities, the vacancies that we need for our kids.
Did that clarify
Just-
your
just one
your
more
question?
clarification,
Mr.
please.
Spears.
Because, you know, it is my understanding is that the caseworkers that are being eliminated actually are doing the work, and this particular position is a supervisory role that is not doing the work. So if you eliminate those that are on the ground doing the work, and you have a supervisor that's not doing that work, that means that what you're saying is not actually occurring because we're not having people working the cases.
Can I ask you a question?
No, but you can certainly clarify what I asked.
So are you good with the information that you have from Mr. Spears and his questions you've answered? And Mr. Spears, you're good with the response that you?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
He doesn't evaluate any staff that I have to know whether they're doing duties or not. That is not his roles and responsibilities.
That is not the role of the board. So at this time,
Exactly.
we're going to move forward. We're going to order of the day, move the agenda. There is a motion on the floor by Mr. Spears, which is seconded by Mr. Lotzenheiser, not to approve this position. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Please let the record note that Mr. Lotzenheiser and Mr. Spears are in opposition, are in favor of the motion. All who oppose, please signify by raising your hand. Please let the record show that Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Verdell, Mr. Jones, did you raise your hand, Mr. Jones? And Mr. Jones are in opposition. Let me capture that. So the motion does fail. At this time, we're back at item number A, if there is anyone who is in opposition for that. And that's the only way that it can come back up again, is for anybody who opposed the original motion to bring it back up. At this time, I move for consideration to approve the job description for Director of Academic Support Services. Please let the record note that Verdell made the motion. Is there a second? Is there a second for consideration to approve the job description for Director of Academic Support Services? Last time, is there a second? The motion does die because of a lack of a second. The next item on the agenda is that of the 2015-2016 CMSD salary schedule analysis and discussion. I think this is Mr. Spears.
Yes. There was a lot of discussion around what numbers are correct, which numbers are inaccurate, how much we're supposed to pay for raises, how much that we're not going to pay for raises. So I took the time to go through each salary scale and compare them year over year from what we're currently operating under, the 2014-15 salary scale, to the 2015-16, which has been proposed. I put all of those together to highlight ABC as to the ones that were approved at the last board meeting and the ones that were tabled. Now, my analysis of looking at things that may be a little bit different than anyone else's is that if you can go back, which we can, to 2003 and review every salary scale adjustment that has been moving forward, you will see that positions' names have been changed, and of course, by that particular point, the scale is modified, therefore a raise is given, and now certain personnel over the past few years have been given raise after raise by step, because every year, if you have a position you're hired for, and you have a step of 1, 2, or 3, or 4, and you go year after year after year, that step takes in effect. That is an increase in pay. That is a raise. So when you compare apples to apples as to what's being presented and what is currently being operated under, you will see there is a difference between the increase in pay that's being discussed and what actually is. And therefore, there were several things that were brought to the board that may have not necessarily been accurate. And in doing this research, I have realized that because I take everything for its surface value, so there are some errors that need to be corrected so that we can petition correct information be brought to this board. Because if I can find everything through our login, through the old website pre-board book, to what we have now, every board member has access to it, as well as every administrator has access to it. Therefore, I make the motion that we rescind all raises that were given last month, with the exception of scale 17, which are the teachers, because that has been legislatively mandated, that we give teachers raises until we can get a fiscally sound budget along with correct facts to make the decision, because there are pockets of individuals and departments within this district that you can look back to 2006 and 2007 and see they haven't received a single raise. You can look at, for example, the teachers' aides, that since 2006, their pay has gone up $500. Now, they were put up to be given $1,000, but until we can justify and see what exactly is correct, we can't move forward with anything in my mind. So that's why I make a motion that we rescind all raises with the exception of scale 17, which is the teachers.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spears. Is there a second for Mr. Spears' motion? That his motion is that we rescind all of the raises that were put forth last month with the exception of item number 17, which is that for teachers. Is there a second? It has been motioned by Mr. Spears. It has been seconded by Mr. Jones. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Fisher.
I'd like to know the logic behind rescinding something that you so vehemently proposed to us last month. I don't see the rationale in rescinding those raises that have been given, because you felt very justifiably in recommending them item by item very selectively in doing so. Can you help me to understand that?
I sure
or at
will.
least give me an explanation.
Sure, absolutely. We were told that, for example, I'll use security, that security was not given, had not been given raises. Well, you go back to 2011, and if you go like I did through every single agenda item that said staff personnel, you'll notice, for example, the coordinator was changed out, and the coordinator became a new job. At that particular point, assumed more responsibilities, we got a 20% increase in pay. Then you fast forward a couple of years, and you see that the whole scales that was presented, I believe in 2012-13, that all the scales shifted up as well. So that person, along with the security personnel, got raises. You also look at, we're being requested to give raises to, let me get, for example, the teacher's aides. You look at those same scales, and you go 12,000, then 12,005. So they, over that period of time, their pay has not gone up as much. Now, they have years of experience, and they have steps, so that's my whole point, is that we're talking about someone hasn't been given raises. But then when you go back and you look at it, if you go up 1 year of experience under some scales, or if you go up a step year after year, that's an increase in your pay. And the way I've always determined an increase in pay, that is a raise. Whether it's by this particular scale or because someone calls you into their office and says, now you have more money next year, it's the same thing. And so there are certain pockets, for example, that have not gotten raises. And so I want those identified to see which ones truly have not gotten raises versus those that have. We've been told, okay, well, because you asked me to clarify, and I'm going to be sure that I do that. The food service supervisor, for example, well, that particular person hasn't gotten a raise. Well, we just changed food service personnel at the supervisory role maybe 1 year ago. And so if that person assumed their position at that base pay and they still have 3 steps, there's no way they would have assumed that role at the top tier step. So they would have stepped up this year to a new one and the next year to a new one. And so all we're doing is pushing more money out the door. And then I go back and I start really making my stomach hurt and getting the tums out when I start realizing is that, you know, and I'm not targeting one person or the other, but you start looking at what's happened before. If you go to 2003 and come forward, you'll see, I don't think it was a very fun thing for Miss Lenore, who happened to be the principal at Stokes Beard at the time, or Billy Smith, who was principal at the time, or Miss Barr at the time, to have to resign their position and take a reduction in days to make sure because of budget constraints in 2010. And then by actions of the board not watching the ball, and I'm not blaming one person, it was just something that has occurred that we've got to prevent, not watching the ball, and then of course they have to go through that same event again in early 2012 before I came on the board, another reduction in days. So giving raises is one thing, but putting this district in a compromised position is vastly different. And until we get complete and true information about an analysis of every single department, I don't think that just blindly saying, well, we're going to approve this plus the supplements that I won't even get into at this moment, that are just so out of hand that that's my reasoning behind it.
Mrs. Fisher, did that answer your question?
No.
Okay, Mrs. Fisher.
Are the people that who are included in the ones you just explained, are they the ones who were approved last month?
That's why I asked to be rescinded, yes.
Okay, so these are the same
Yes.
people that you did a thorough analysis on their positions, and you selectively
Right.
pulled out positions that, let me finish, pulled out positions that you recommended for approval, but now you want to rescind those because you've had some other analysis? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. Actually, it's because we get double talked too often, and so at a meeting.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
We were sitting in a meeting Wednesday for a review, and I kept asking the question about a position, and I didn't get an answer. And I thought, why would you obfuscate this particular subject when all you got to do is answer the question? And it occurred to me, okay, we were going to put forth a particular recommendation to be approved to consolidate a position, and then it occurred to me, well, we didn't do that because if you approve the scales, then that person automatically becomes at that new scale, and they get that pay. So you don't have to get you kind of navigate around the board. And so to make my point clear, so that it's not that, oh, well, Jason didn't do a thorough analysis, I don't understand why I'm the only one looking through this. That's my problem with the whole thing.
So, Ms. Fisher, are you good? Okay, thank you, Mr. Spears.
Madam President,
Mr. Dunn.
the superintendent has, I think you've indicated that contracts have gone out with the new salaries in them, and at least one employee has accepted the contract, is that right?
Yes. Based on the fact that the last board meeting, it was, Mr. Spears recommended that those individuals get raises, and so we handed out contracts to those individuals, and at least one accepted. So I don't know how legal that is.
Well, I think that if, in fact, a contract went out and there was acceptance, then you're going to be stuck with that contract. If they have actually accepted the contract and the new salary scale was in that contract, then you're going to have a salary at that contract for that employee or any employee that's accepted it.
Okay, so just to clarify, for that employee, and you said there was one employee that has accepted. I'm asking Dr. Hickman because he's the one that made the statement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so to understand is that my motion was to rescind all except for the teachers. Then that one particular employee that has accepted the new thing is correct, and if the board takes action, what's your opinion, Mr. Dunn?
If the person that received the contract was not in pay scale 17, then I think that's a binding contract, and the district will have to honor that contract for that person, or any person that received a contract, they signed it, turned it back in, you've got a binding contract. Dr. Hickman, was that person in pay scale 17 or outside of 17?
The new pay scale that Mr. Spears recommended, and actually it may be more, but I'm just saying the ones that we already have gotten back.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Dunn, let me ask this question, please.
I don't think he answered the question.
Was this person that received the contract a teacher in pay scale 17 or out in the other group?
Was not a teacher, but a certified employee.
Okay.
So, Mr. Dunn, if we have a situation where we're rescinding some, but then we're not rescinding others, and I understand the explanation about classes of employees, how does that then start to break down, you know, the sanctity of, yes, you can exclude classes of employees, but you can't go and cherry pick individual employees?
Yes, an employer does not need, I mean, basically, we do not need to be giving, without thought being put to it, you should not be giving raises to individuals. It should be a class of individuals, such as the teachers or, you know, the ATs. But you shouldn't be picking out individual teachers or individual ATs to give a raise to. As long as there's some class, such as those that have not received raises in the past, that made sense. That's what Mr. Spears was saying last month, and there's nothing wrong with that. But going beyond that is definitely something that you have to think about, and what the consequences are when you do that.
So if we rescind all of the offers or all of the salary scales for all but those who have already contracted with us based on those scales, then could that be perceived as a type of cherry picking?
I don't know whether I would characterize it as cherry picking, but I would say that we do not know the consequences of that, and it probably is not a good idea at this point. From a legal standpoint, I can't tell you what the consequences are because I don't know how many contracts are out. I don't know who has turned them in, who hasn't turned them in. So, you know, without an analysis, we just don't know the effect of that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dunn. So, and Mr. Lotzenheiser helped me to make sure that I have captured the motion because I don't want to lose my place. I have that Mr. Spears is asking to rescind the motion with the exception of item number 17.
Correct.
And I have a second by Mr. Jones.
That is correct.
Okay, so we've had discussion.
And
No,
I would like to say that as a school board attorney, I do not want this board to rescind the raise of someone who has already turned their contract in, and there is a binding contract. You are legally bound by that. So I would be asking you, I am asking you to at least change the action, the resolution to reflect, that those who have already turned their contracts in as signed, that be excluded from that. Now, I don't think that's a good idea, to be honest with you. And my recommendation is not to pass this resolution because contracts have gone out with the pay increases in them, and in a sense, it's already out, and it's out of your control at this point. And you don't want to get into a situation where there may be a claim of prejudice. What's the effect of this?
Well, Madam President, if I might say something,
Mr. Spears?
it would help this board out a great deal if we weren't giving what people want us to see and people would give us the whole facts. Because when you're brought information that says these people haven't received raises, you should also show where they haven't received raises. Because it took me, after we had this back and forth the other day about how things were, okay, well, this person has gotten a raise, and so you're cherry picking this. I've heard this song and dance before. And now I go to make this thing right based off of the fact that there's evidence to support not just my opinion, but the facts that weren't given to us before. And now we're in a compromised position. I think that's highly unfair to this board, and I'll even go as far as to say I'll take the heat and that's fine. But from now on, I would ask that the board be given complete information and not just what is going to get something through to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Spears.
Madam President,
Mr. Jones.
I would like to withdraw my
Okay, so
second
Mr. Jones is going to withdraw his second.
And if I would like to add,
And I would like to withdraw.
that the person that has.
Excuse me, Dr. Hickman.
Thank you, Dr. Hickman. I would like to withdraw my motion to rescind based off the fact that we are already in a compromised position.
Okay, so Mr. Lotzenheiser, do you have that? Yes, I do have it. Okay, thank you. Dr. Hickman.
And if I would like to allow my business manager to again present what she presented to the board, what we have given to the board, and also that I always invited the board and I have emailed the board the information. And I always encourage the board that if you're going to dig for information, to please come ask me, and I can point you to the person who's in charge of that information. So instead of getting information on your own, then it would have been easier if we had went to Ms. McGar, who was our business manager, and did kind of a swap sharing of information. But if Tammy, if you could please present.
As I shared with you last Wednesday, the total cost of the proposed raises, the ones that have been passed and the ones that are up for consideration, the total cost of the district, or to the district for these, is $78,923.63 for next year.
And in your professional opinion, do you see a projection of putting the district at risk if we approve these raises?
I don't at this point, based on we have a healthy fund balance, and of course, there could be unforeseen situations that happen in the future that none of us could be aware of. But we do have a healthy fund balance. And as far as like the legislature not funding MAEP, if they didn't fund anything on MAEP, that would be a catastrophic event that would shut down every school district across Mississippi, I'm afraid. But that's just not something that we can foresee happening, but I do not foresee that happening.
And do you feel that you ever misled or given the board any false information about who has received raises or anything of that nature?
I have not. I've tried to have everything backed up. I did provide you with the other day on what salary scales had increased over the years and which ones had not changed.
Right. And the same thing as always when the information with the salary scales and the raises that have been presented, you said you have given them accurate information. And you know the information, am I correct?
Yes,
I mean,
I've had numbers to back up everything I've given the board.
and we just had a very successful audit of our
Yes.
finances and,
Yes.
and those kind of things, so, okay.
Ms.
Madam-
McGarn.
Madam President?
Just one second, Mr. Spears.
Sure.
Ms. McGarn, will you please repeat the total dollar amount that's needed to support all of the items that are listed for consideration on item number C?
Yes, hold on one moment. 70, $78,923.63.
And Ms. McGarn, in some of those positions, are federal funds used to fund some of those positions?
That is the cost to the district. That does not include the federally funded positions.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Spears, I think you had a question.
Yes, I do. You just stated, Dr. Hickman, that you had spoken with Ms. McGarr and that she'd gone through and given you analysis of the previous years. If I heard you correctly, Ms. McGarr, and I apologize if I did not, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you had gone back and had provided to the superintendent an analysis of what increases had happened over the years. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. Did you provide that to the board, Dr. Hickman?
Yes, I did.
Okay, could you show me it? Because you must have sent it to 4 out of 5.
I mean, do you want me to pull it up right now?
No, I would have liked to have had it a month ago.
I did.
Okay, so I did the same thing she did.
And I had each individual conferences with you, as well as
Yes.
with the other board members.
Where you were rallying to get a position more than anything else. So may I ask a question, Madam President?
Mr. Spears.
Thank you. When I look at this, I believe this is what you put together for us, just to show you 2015, right here. And I see...
Mr. Spears, will you share with the board what you're referring to?
Yes, this is what was presented to the board April 24th, 2015.
That's the budget update, the 20...
Budget update, that's
The
correct.
2015-2016 budget update.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
And if you look at cost of all raises, which would include the legislative and mandated teachers'
That's the
raises.
teacher raises also.
That's correct, but it says other personnel step increases.
Mhm.
And so it is my, and I have confirmed this with you, but it's my understanding that if you have a scale that says that years of service go from 0 to, let's say, 20, and each year it goes 1, 2, 3 years of service. And out next to that, it has, you start at 30,000, you go to 31.5, and then 33,000. Every year it increases by that incremental amount. That is considered still a step.
Yes.
If you have a scale, maybe in administration, where you start at $90,000, and you have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, each year, if you're hired at whatever certification you have, AAA, AA, whatever level it is, with experience, without, you go to that scale and you say, I'm hired at this, and next year you go to step 1, the next year you go to step 2. So in just basic analysis of finance, if you get a year-over-year raise or increase or a step increase, do you see that as being a raise?
I see that as a step increase.
So
These salary scales, our reasoning for changing them was because at some point you get to the bottom of your step and you can't go any further.
Right, okay. And I thank you for, and I hope you don't think this is a segue, but thank you for that. Because if I go back and I look at 2011, for example, when we had a position, and I'll just title it Special Assistant to Superintendent, and that particular person had stepped through to the last step, and then at the meeting, I think it was in March of 2011, there was a change in the name of the position from that to deputy. And then there's a new scale for that, and it goes step by step by step. Now, if I were to be just suspicious about what's going on, and I see, well, we started at, say, in 2011, $115,000, and now that person may have exhausted the step at $122,000, that means that in the school year of 2012-13, there was an increase. 2013-14, there was an increase. 14-15, there was an increase. And now we've tapped out. So that would be a pretty substantial increase from point A to point B in that scenario, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
lost me.
Now, if I go back and I look at the teacher's aides for 2006 and 7, and I see that they were the entry level at zero experience was $12,000, and every year they go up to a cap of about $15,000 over, I think it is, and I'll tell you because I have it right here in front of me, scale 30. Scale 30, they would tap out at 14 years of experience to make $15,525. And in this next proposed increase, we're trying to increase them by $1,000. So if I have a person that has 15 years, or let's say 14, because that's what the scale shows, 14 years of experience that's now tapped out at $15,525. And then I look at what's being proposed here for the 2015-16 scale. And let's see here, scale 18. Those individuals now would be going up to, if they're at 14, they'd go to 15, so $16,550. And then they get one more year of experience, and then they would ceiling out again, correct?
Now, repeat your question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if we look at the same amount of steps year after year,
Right.
if you get someone who's worked in the district for 15 years, under this particular scale, they're going to tap out.
Right.
Right. So we give them a $1,000 raise, they're still tapped out. But if you go and you look at other positions, and I hate to say mostly administrative, you're going to see that that pay continues to go up. And that has been the tax that has really held this district back, because this district doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. Because if I look at the same thing in 2006, and this will be it.
Thank you.
Yes. If I look at the same thing in 2006 and 7, and here's the scale right here, and I could go back to 3, 4, I'll have them all. But if I were to look at the, for example, let's look at the high school principal position. So if I look at the high school principal position in 2006 and 7, they had 236 days. That's scale 14 under this. If we were to start with AAA certification, the beginning would be $63,700. What's proposed for that same position in the 2015-16, which is scale 13 now, scale 13, triple certification, the same as I just outlined to you in different things, is going to be, let's see, that's assistant principal, excuse me. 6, I'm sorry, it's actually scale 6. $95,000. So this district has gone from $63,000 in this one position to $95,000. And the last time I checked,
the board would have approved that position. That was way before.
No, I understand.
That was 4 or 5 year tenured. Another superintendent chose to put a pay scale, and the board approved a pay scale for a principal.
Okay.
It's not that one principal jumped from this to that. That is a pay scale that you guys, as a board, approved.
And Madam President, if I might
Mr. Spears.
finish what I was saying.
Mr. Spears.
The fact of the matter is this. This district continues to accumulate cost. And it's not something that Jason came up with, it's a fact. Our revenues continue to go down. In December 2009, there's an article, everybody can Google it, December 2009, CMSD MAP funding is in the local paper. You'll be able to see that they started doing budget reductions for the same reason. But things got good again. We got a healthy fund balance, and everything looks bright and rosy again. We don't care about a national downturn in the economy. We don't care that we've lost $20 million of value in our tax rolls, and we've only put back about 14 of it. None of that matters because we want to keep on increasing. And that's going to mean that we're going to be at some point saying, hey guys, we know you got 236 at these higher salaries, but we need to do a budget reduction. And so just like the people that have gone through it, 2010, again in 2012, you're setting them up for the same type of failure again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spears. Thank you, Board. Thank you, Dr. Hickman, for the discussion. That brings us to item number C, which is consideration of the CMSD 2015-2016 salary schedule for those items that were tabled in our last meeting. This will require an action. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we do not approve the salary scales listed that were on the table from last meeting.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears not to approve the table salary schedule. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It has been motioned by Mr. Spears, seconded by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there no more discussion?
Yes, there is discussion.
Mr.
This is a
Spears.
new motion. Even if you don't agree with what is put forth as far as the increases with salary, you look at the supplements. Every single supplement is shifted around or modified in some way. Then you start looking at, we're going to hand out with nothing to back it up other than we're going to get clubs pulled together so that we can give $500 to club sponsors of $22,500. Then you go back and you look at positions, for example, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, $6,500. Just a few years ago, it was $2,800. So it goes back to further the point is that the district continues to accrue more and more and more expenses.
And if I may add,
Dr. Hickman.
if I may add, and if I was and I'm just a superintendent, and I am a parent as well, and if I was a other parent, I would be very upset that as a board, you guys are eliminating stipends for after-school programs, for after-school tutoring, for after-school. Right now at our high school, we don't have strong clubs. Middle school, we have no after-school clubs, programs, tutorings. At our elementary school, we have no after-school clubs, programs, tutorings, extracurricular activities, all those kind of things, which is actually in research is called closing the opportunity gap for kids in order to be successful, in order to be well-rounded students. So as a board, you guys are rejecting the notion that our kids deserve what other kids deserve to have. Right now, we are a bare-bone district. As a city official, as a mayor, as a community member, I would be very, very disheartened for a board to sit here and say that kids don't need clubs. And we are paying people, and excuse me, $500 stipends a year. That is 5 cents a day to host a club, and we can't even do that as a district. That is very disrespectful to the kids and the community members of our district. And I will say that as a superintendent.
So, Dr. Hickman, at this time, you're asking for the $500 stipend for teachers, for clubs, and organizations, for students. You have not identified all of the clubs and organizations.
We cannot, ma'am, because the thing you have to do is you have to survey children.
They don't
Right.
To know what
exist.
clubs to have. If you-
Excuse me, Dr.
ahead.
Hickman.
Uh-huh.
Because I agree with you.
Okay.
I'm simply saying,
Yes, ma'am.
you have the monies there for the clubs and the organizations that you intend, which may not be all of the $22,000. You may not use all of the $500 that you're asking for the different 45 or 50 clubs, but it's there so that we can do more robotics, so that we can do more STEM, so that we can do more automation, so that we can do these things that our students deserve to have. So I support you on that. However, I do know that you don't have them all identified. And I do know that we're lacking. I have a child at the high school, gave a speech this morning, running for student body president. Guess what she put in her speech? That she wants to solicit administration for more student organizations and clubs. So I agree with you. I agree with you. So, board, is there any other discussion on this item?
Yes.
Mr. Spears.
I would like to understand better then why I was asked, can we pay parents to help volunteer? So, if we don't have clubs, we're approving $22,500 please answer that question for me.
Is the question directed to me?
Well, it's
Or
actually,
you-
well, it
who
was
you
actually
directing
Dr.
the question
Hickman that
to?
made the statement, so
So
I'll
what
ask
is your
him.
question? What is the question?
The question is, why is it that we were asked about can we pay parents to volunteer?
Dr. Hickman, did you have that?
I don't know what he's talking about. What I asked was for teachers to sponsor clubs.
Right, yeah, but that's, no,
So we're going back to the item at
all
hand.
what you said.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Spears has made the motion not to approve the table salary schedule. Mr. Lotzenheiser has seconded. We're done with our discussion. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record show that Mr. Lotzenheiser and Mr. Spears are in favor. All who are opposed, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record show that Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Verdell, and Mr. Jones are in opposition.
Madam President,
Mr. Jones,
I make a motion to not approve all of them except for number 36.
okay, so tell, yeah, what is it, Mr. Jones? What's your motion?
I make a motion not to approve the scale, all except for number 36, which is a
So your
supplement.
motion is to approve item number 36?
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay, so item number 36, Mrs. McGuire, will you please share with me what item number 36 is?
The supplement.
so the motion is to approve item 36? Is that?
Yeah,
Is
to
that your
not
motion?
approve the other ones, but to approve supplements, number
Okay.
36, the supplements.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is, and I want to make sure that I state this right, because I don't want to see myself on the big screen and not having captured the motion correctly. So your motion is to not approve all of the items with the exception of item number 36. And I know that's kind of speaking in the negative.
Supplements that, for the stipends.
Okay, so does everybody understand Mr. Jones' motion? All right, so that is his motion. Is there a second?
Second.
So it has been motioned by Mr. Jones. It has been seconded by Mr. Spears. Discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Spears.
If it passes and the supplements for the clubs are being paid out, will this board receive any documentation as to who they're being paid to?
That
I mean,
is-
for example, we know if a coach is a coach, they're getting a stipend for being the head coach or the offensive coordinator or the cross country or any of those things. But what we don't know is, okay, if we have 45 different clubs that currently do not exist, and we're allocating $22,500 for getting those clubs up and going, or what kind of accountability is going to be brought back to this board to show that we're not paying parents to volunteer?
Well, Mr. Spears, I do know that any of the supplements that are given are listed at the bottom of the personnel agenda by name and by position and by their role. Mr. Dunn.
A supplement is just that, a supplement to an employment contract. You can't issue a supplement by itself.
All right.
It supplements a contract, so you know, and
No,
parents
I understand
don't
how
have
the dynamics
contracts.
work, but I mean, since it's, like I said, information has been shared that, hey, why don't we pay parents to volunteer? I would like to know that we're going to see the accounting for all of these different supplements. But I completely agree. If it's going to be brought back to what's going on as far as the contracts and how everything's added to it, like cross-country or anything, I'm fine with that. But I just don't want to get to the end of the year and see, hey, we've doled this out, and we know that we can account for 75% of it, but we don't know what the other 25% went.
Quote, Madam President,
Mrs. Fisher.
I believe I'm correct in understanding that a supplement is only paid to an employee who is on the district's payroll. That
No, I
is
agree.
in addition to their regular salary for
Yes.
extra performance of performances that they're doing.
Yes.
If someone were to be paid, that would be on our claims docket, if I'm not mistaken, as a separate line item. So as one who goes through the claim dockets line item by line item, and I believe you do too, it would be very clear to see that someone, because the justification is there, the code, the reason is there, why they're receiving any monies from the district. So it would not be a supplement to a parent. And you know, there are some parents out here who should get paid for what they're doing, because they're doing what the board is not doing, and that's taking a very active and supportive role in their children's education. I understand, Mr. Spears, that you come from a business background, but this is not a business. It is not.
Which is
This is an investment in our future. It is not a business, you know.
Well, let me just say this. Had it been run like a business, we wouldn't have had to lay people off, 69 teachers, 2012. We wouldn't have had budget constraints in 2010. People would have been able to have deciphered through the problems that they can see rather than ones they want to ignore
I agree.
to make it happen.
If it had been run like a business,
I agree.
we
That's
would not
what I
have
try to bring
had
to the table.
Well,
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Thank you, Mr. Spears.
And
We have
may I add a correction? May I make a correction?
one correction, please.
Because there's a lot of things that are said that I just want to make sure that we have facts. For instance, when we talked about the football coordinator position and we keep occurring costs, that was approved. It's the same as last year. It's nothing that's what I'm confused at. It's nothing that's under your tenure as a board member. So I just want to make sure that we know that
Okay. Well,
it's the same as last year.
he brought it
That's
up.
all I want to say.
So may I address
Thank
it?
you.
Because he brought it up, and I mean, it's right here. Okay, so if we look at the proposed supplements that are going to be, if voted through, will go into effect, and you look at the proposed ones, yes, last year, I voted for the scales of the 2014-15, which we operate under. But if you go and you look and say, well, let's look at high school football and ninth grade football. You have 2 assistant ninth grade football coaches that you're reducing to 4. They're currently paid $1,300 of a supplement. You're moving them to the high school. The high school, you add 2 because you went from 6 to 8 year over year, and those supplements, instead of being $1,300, are $3,500 apiece. So you made my point, and I appreciate that, Dr. Hickman, because yes, I approved it, and that's why I had
It's a
recommended.
different level. It's a different level of coordinator. You went from middle school to high school.
But the whole point, I haven't talked about high school or whatever, other than the fact that the costs keep going up, and I don't understand why that's not clicking with you.
Okay, thank you for your
It's
observation.
the same as a
Dr.
middle school
Hickman.
principal is less
Dr.
than a high
Hickman.
school principal.
Dr. Hickman, thank you for your response. We do have a motion that's on the table right now. We have Mr. Jones, who has made the motion. We have Mr. Spears with the second. The motion is that we not approve all of the items with the exception of item number 36.
And Madam President, may I make the point that the
Mr.
way
Dunn?
it's worded,
Is-
it is not going to approve item 36. Just so we'll know,
That's correct.
the motion is to approve, to not approve all items except 36. There'll be no
So
action.
36 is your exception.
no, I want to approve 36, but not approve.
That is
36.
his motion.
Then the motion needs to be, and I want to make sure Mr. Jones's motion is to not approve all items except to approve item
Item number
36.
Correct.
And I'm sorry, but point of order, he's going to have to rescind because the motion has already been made a second by Mr. Spears.
Okay, so for that technicality, and I think, Mr. Dunn, the only thing that you change is to approve item number 36. Is that correct?
So if you amend your motion to that, then
I
we'll
would-
have to have an amendment to the second.
I would like to amend my motion to not approve all the other ones and to approve number 36, the supplements for additional duties.
All right, so Mr. Spears, do you still second his motion?
I do. And I do have one question, and I guess I'll just sit back and watch the rest of the meeting, but June 30th, 2013, and that's why I was asking just a second ago when we were seeing the funding for MAP was cut by $1.7 million this year. and I talked about how the different things. Now, we were presented, well, how we make the numbers work is that we have to shift the debt millage levy that's falling off because we paid off debt. We've paid off debt so that it can start going down. Well, this is the minutes right here, along with all the other information, that a motion was made by Jason Spears and seconded by Curry Fisher to approve the budget for fiscal year January 3rd, 2013, and all debt services are fully funded for the coming year. Now, there was an ongoing practice to where we would pay debt out of the operating fund and then hope that nobody noticed. Well, it was noticed, and so the board took action to eliminate that issue because there were other issues with the bondholders. Now, we've paid off debt and other things this school year. Now we're saying, well, look, taxpayer, we're not going to tell you about it. We're going to take it back over and go back and implement the same practice we were just doing.
Mr. Spears.
No, that's exactly, because here's the point.
Mr. Spears,
Here's my point.
Yeah, I have a question because
Yeah.
is that related to item number C? Is your statement related
Yes,
to
it
what
is.
we're?
It is.
Will you specify that for us, please, so that we can follow?
I think we've got a gavel ringing at me right now.
Can you specify, please, so that we can follow?
Okay, so the whole point is that to fund what we're trying to do, including some of these supplements, we're going to shift the amount of debt that's rolling off that request back over into the operations. So that means that we're going to stay at the same level of request, even though we've paid off debt, what this board is now in writing approved to do, that we're going to have to shift it back over to support this higher cost.
Okay, so, and you're specifically talking about the items that are included under
The
item number
1,200
36, the
The
supplements.
$2,200 here and all these other things,
Okay.
yes.
Ms.
All right,
McGar?
Dr. Hickman.
How much are the total supplements?
52,000, around 50.
$52,000. Excuse me, board. I think our budget is 40-something million. I think from local, it's 10 million. I think we have
It's an increase of 52,000.
$52,000.
So we have our $40 million budget, and we increase it $52,000, is what you're saying, correct, Dr. Hickman?
It's not coming out of our fund balance. So what my job as a superintendent is to work with my business manager and see where we find 52 million, 52,000. So for instance, it may be that we don't purchase a couple of laptop computers in order to fund after-school programs. But that's within the budget.
Okay.
That's not unrealistic. It's not saying that we're asking for money outside of our budget. We're saying within our budget that we set the parameters. My job, or what you hired me for, was to better educate kids, to put resources together from my professional expertise, to put resources together to educate kids.
Okay.
And so I'm just making a recommendation. And I will set the budget around what best meets the needs to educate our kids.
So thank you, Dr. Hickman. So we're back to this motion. Mr. Jones has made the motion, Mr. Spears has second. We're done with discussion. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record show that it is unanimous. Board, is there any other action that we're looking to take on the rest of the items that have been tabled?
Madam President,
Mrs. Fisher.
I move that we approve the supplements that cover everything except item 36.
So you're moving to approve all of the table items
That's correct.
with the exception of 36, as they
Which
have
has already
already
been
been approved. Is there a second to Mrs. Fisher's motion? I'll second. Please let the record show that Mrs. Fisher has made the motion. Verdell has made the second. Is there any discussion?
Discussion.
Mrs. Fisher.
And I'd like a clarification on my question from the legal counsel, if I may get that. I've heard several times tonight Mr. Spears tell the public what the board thinks as individual members, I'm assuming, because he's not naming names. And I take offense to that, simply because it is not appropriate for you to try to get into my head to say what drives me to make certain decisions based on information that I've received as a board member.
Madam
So,
President,
excuse
is
me,
this about,
if-
is this
Mr.
about the
Spears?
topic?
Mr. Spears?
Or, I'm just asking, if it's directed at me, then we need to have the vote, and then she can do that, but
Mrs. Fisher, continue, please.
Thank you. I'm very, very capable of articulating my reasons as well as whether I'm for something or against something. So I'm asking that you not speak for me. Please, don't do it. And I think it's inappropriate that you try to speak for any board member. And my question, therefore, to Mr. Dunn is, under our rules of standards of governance, is there anything inappropriate with Mr. Spears speaking for other board members? And given it's how the board only acts through its actions. And I think we're given the opportunity to have discussion after or upon every vote that's been presented. So if it's not a matter of record, I don't understand how one member of the board can sit and speak for the thoughts of any other board member. Is there anything inappropriate with that, Mr. Dunn?
I don't think any board member can speak for any other board member.
So is there anything inappropriate in, given our rules of conduct
If any,
that we're given by the state of Mississippi?
I don't know of any particular rule of conduct that would speak to this, any law or rule of conduct, but no board member can speak for any other
Thank
board
you.
member.
And just for clarification, as she stated when she first started talking, she said he didn't name names or whatever, so how am I speaking for someone?
All right, thank you, Mr. Spears. So we're back to this. The one thing that I would like to note is that our planning meeting on last Wednesday, I asked the question of Mrs. McGarr, when will we have a draft budget? And I do know that all of the documentation and the calculations that you provided to us was the first step of that. And I do know that a significant portion of our budget is that of salaries. So therefore, I know that we're at an impasse. We cannot have a draft of our budget because we have not determined the salary scales for 2015, 2016. And
That
Mrs.
is
McGarr,
correct.
when are we supposed to make our first presentation of this budget to the public?
In June. That was my plan.
Okay, so here we sit in the month of May, and we have not come to an agreement on our salary scale.
Madam President, may I
Mr.
ask one
Spears.
question to, I'm sorry, Dr. Hickman, may I ask a question to Ms. McGarr?
There's a motion, I think there's a motion on
Right.
the table right now.
Yeah, I think
But we're in
we're
discussion
still in
about these
discussion.
particular ones being in the budget, so I think that's where the relevancy of it comes to being.
Go ahead, Mr. Spears.
Well, I'm asking Dr. Hickman because he's got to give me the ability to talk to some of his personnel.
Ask the question out loud, and then the question will be addressed.
Ms. McGarr, if we do not approve the proposed 2015-16 and the 2014-15 currently exist and individuals that would get steps in those positions, that would still be in effect for the next budget year?
I believe so. Mr. Dunn would need to answer that, but I
Okay,
believe so.
so we don't have to approve the recommendation for those individuals to still operate under the existing scales. So it's making it like if we don't approve it, these individuals will not have pay next year, and that's just not true.
No, it's not, but
They just may
You-
not, I'm just
But you-
saying, because that's kind of what we're skirting around the edges
no,
of saying or
no,
not saying.
and I don't want to mislead, and at this point, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but what I'm saying is we were given the proposed 2015, 2016 salary schedules as an input, a direct input for the budget. And so there's a budget that is trying to be created based on that. So now what you're asking is that they go back and they recreate or recalculate the budget based on old numbers because we're not going to make a decision on these.
Which is correct, because
Okay.
it would be, Madam President, may I just say one final thing about this? Is that if this was not even brought for recommendation, then that scales that were approved last year would continue on this year anyway. And so those numbers for those individuals would still be available to compute what the budget is for those particular positions. So it's not that we don't have the information, it would just be if we have these new approved ones.
I
as to how it would
understand.
be.
So you're wanting them to go back? And
I'm not
based on-
commanding
ba-
anything, they're not my employees. All
No,
I'm simply
no.
saying is that like the scales exist.
No,
and they
I
can be used in
would,
the budget.
I would think that you would want them to go back because the budget is the board's budget.
Yes.
So yes, the board would want for them to go back and recalculate and come back so that we can move forward with creating a budget. All right. So the motion is still on the table. Discussion at this point, I do believe, has ended.
Would you please restate, or let me restate the motion?
Please, Mr. Dunn.
Ms. Fisher moved to approve all tabled items except item 36, and it was seconded by Ms. Verdell.
That is correct. So all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record show that Ms. Fisher and Verdell are in favor. All who are in opposition, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record note that Mr. Lotzenheiser, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Spears are in opposition. The next item on the agenda is that of consideration to approve staff personnel items. Board, we've had the opportunity to review the items that have been provided to us. This will require an action. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Spears. I'm almost afraid to ask, but is there any discussion?
Believe it or not, I have nothing to say.
All right. So, anybody else? All right. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is that of consideration to approve the one-year extension for our board attorney. Board, as we know, Mr. Dunn's agreement will be ending at in June, and so the recommendation is that there be a one-year extension provided for the board attorney. This does require an action. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to extend it for 1 year.
It has been motioned by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Jones. Is there any discussion?
I do have is there a raise in that extension?
There is. In that agreement, the hourly fee is increasing from $125 an hour to $150 an hour.
Interesting.
We need it more now than ever.
Is there any discussion? The one thing that I would add, Dr. Hickman, in just doing some informal research, I do know that attorney fees are going right at about $200 an hour at least. Is that right, Mr. Dunn? And that there has not been a pay increase given to the attorney for 10 years. So
If that was the same precedent that we're setting for our attorney, our teachers, and I've showed you guys that instructionally, we are one of the lowest paid districts as far as our teacher personnel and our assistant teachers and our support staff, that we are the lowest, out of 152 districts, we're ranked 15th percentage-wise in expenditures towards capital outlay and all those kind of things that goes towards our children.
All right, thank you.
So we're kind of under-educating our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Hickman, and I do understand the comparison that you're trying to make.
Okay.
So we do have a motion by Mr. Lotzenheiser. It has been seconded by Mr. Jones.
May I ask a clarification?
Yes.
It's to approve the contract based on the engagement letter that's attached to
Yes,
the...
and everybody, the engagement letter was uploaded on Board Book. All right? So if there's no more discussion, all in favor of the one-year extension at the rate that we have noted, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item that we have is that for Office of Instruction, we have a consideration to approve, and there are 3 different agreements, Board, and I would just ask if it is okay with everyone that we take them all as one slate. We do know that the board attorney has reviewed all of the agreements. Everything has checked out to be legally sound. So if you would, please allow me to take all of the items at once. Do I have any opposition with that?
No.
Okay. So this will require an action. Is there an action to approve items A, B, and C under the Office of Instruction? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Jones. Is there a second? I'll second. Is there any discussion?
Couple of questions.
Mr. Spears.
Just because the VIF, International Education Master Subscription, we didn't really have that much time to review it. Could you clarify exactly how this improves the district?
Dr. Hickman, will you please share with us what the VIF agreement is intended to provide?
It sets a global pathway for our district, the same pathway that's supported by our previous IB program. And so it leads from the elementary to middle school to set that abstract, rigorous, global type educational pathway, which leads to our high school IB certification program.
Okay.
So I just want to understand, so we do still have IB at the high school?
Yes, we do, and I'm sorry I answered that question because my child is enrolled in the IB program.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
And will exist next year as well?
We haven't gotten any changes for my child, but Dr. Hickman, I'll let you answer.
Yes.
Yes.
It will, okay.
All right, so the motion has been made by Mr. Jones, second by Verdell. If there's no more discussion, we have items A, B, and C under the Office of Instruction. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record show that Fisher, Lotzenheiser, Verdell, and Jones are in favor. All opposed, please signify by raising your right hand. Please let the record note that Mr. Spears is in opposition. The motion does carry. The next item on the agenda is that of the Office of Support Services. We have consideration to approve school bus transportation services agreement, and along with this, we have 4 resolutions that need to be considered. We have item number A, consideration to approve the school bus transportation services agreement. Mr. Dunn, have you had the opportunity to review all of the agreements?
Yes, ma'am. I think we amended the agenda, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4.
We do.
And although I'm not an educator, I understand that it's very important during the months of June and July for support services. The goals and mandates of the district require certain activities to continue for the students, and each one of these organizations does do that. I have reviewed the contracts. You're making a finding basically that says that the use of the school buses by these organizations support your educational goals and mandates. Each organization is paying for the use of the buses. They're paying for the drivers. There's insurance in place both with the organizations and also EchoRide.
All right, Board, so we do have the 4 resolutions that are before us. In order to approve this will require an action. Is there a motion to accept the resolutions?
Ms. Verdell, you could do them as a group, all 4 of them, if you wanted to.
Yes, Board, will you please allow me to do that?
Yes.
Perfect.
So moved.
It has been motioned by Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Spears. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that to consider the makeup days for staff due to the inclement weather. This will require an action. Is there a motion?
I'm already the villain here, so move.
Okay, it has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lotzenheiser. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is that of the Office of Business Management, Ms. Tammy McGarr. Mrs. McGarr.
The first item is item A, the consideration to approve amendment to contract for professional services with Charles L. Shivers, CPA. Are there any questions?
Board, do we have any questions for Mrs. McGarr?
And that was just the changing of the date.
That's correct.
This will require an action. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
It's been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is the consideration to approve the adoption of the IDEA. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Spears. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Mrs. McGuire, item number C, the monthly financial reports.
Are there any questions on the monthly financial reports?
Board, are there any questions? No.
No.
Mrs. McGuire, item number D.
Okay. Certification and summary of reconciled bank statements. Any questions?
We still have real money.
Yes, we do have real money.
Item number E, ad valorem, tax collection board. Do we have any questions with regards to that? If not, that takes us to item F, Kelly Services recap, which is for information only. And last, we have the update on the 2015-2016 budget. Mrs.
Okay.
McGuire.
And we will be working on, I don't have anything further to tell you other than what I told you last Wednesday. I will be working with the salary scales and getting those inputs. And I do, there is a consideration to approve advertising for the public hearing, but a date needs to be set for that.
And when is the latest that we can do that, Mrs. McGuire?
I was hoping we could do it on June the 12th.
On June the 12th? Okay, board, does anybody have any opposition to June the 12th? Because I do know that we're already kind of slated for June the 12th for the bids
To be
that are
here.
supposed to
Right.
come
So that
back. Will that work for everybody?
I will not be here.
You won't be here? Mr. Jones, how about you? Okay, while you're checking, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Lotzenheiser.
It's kind of up in the air, and there's a possibility I'll be out of town. I do not know absolutely.
Yeah, it's a possibility I might be out of town.
Okay, so Mrs. McGuire, if we can look, maybe, what about the 11th, board?
I'm in Boston until 10th, 11th, and 12th. But I mean, I'm one, so
11th is fine with me.
The 11th is good for you, Mr. Lotzenheiser, do you know? Do you know? Okay, so, Mrs. McGuire, Mr. Spears, you said that you're going to be out when?
I'll be out the 10th, 11th, and 12th.
So
But
on the 9th, Mrs. McGuire, will you have the information ready for review by the 9th?
Oh, yes, it will be ready before then, because that is, the public hearing is for the public.
Right.
And it will,
Exactly.
you will have already received the information by
Okay,
then.
so then, Mr. Spears, if you need to work offline with Mrs. McGuire to review, can
Right.
you do that?
Yes.
Okay, so we will write in June the 11th for that date, Mrs. McGuire. Do we need a formal action on that, or is everybody good?
I would prefer for you to call it tomorrow or some
Okay.
other day so that the board clerk or assistant would not have to try to post that. You've got 1 hour to post that meeting, so if you act tonight, she's going to have to rush over there and post that. But as board president,
We can just call a special
you
meeting?
can call that special meeting.
All right, but we do know that everybody, with the exception of Mr. Spears, can physically be there. All right. The next item on the agenda is that of information items only. Board, there are several dates that have been noted. The one that we want to pay very close attention to is there is a CMSD 8th grade graduation happening on May 14th. The CHS class night is on May 21st. And we will have our graduation ceremony taking place at Mississippi State University on May 23rd at 10 o'clock a.m. If there is nothing further, that brings us to close determination for, okay, Dr. Hickman?
If I remember on the June the 12th is for Kevin Stafford.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
We need to talk with him because
He
So-
said that's when I think he said that's when the bids will come back.
Yes.
excuse me, I think he said the bids would come back the 10th, did he not? Didn't he say that the bids would be received on the 10th of June?
I thought he said June the 12th.
He specifically asked for June the 12th.
Well, I think they're going to be received on the 10th, but I thought he wanted us to approve them on the 12th. But my recollection was
in
that
order
the
for a
bid-
deadline
is
for
that the
everything to
10th
be done.
Is that the 10th would be the deadline for receiving bids? I thought he said that. That's what I have in my notes.
So, Dr. Hickman, will you clarify for us, is June the 12th the day of our standing board preparation meeting?
No.
Okay. So that's not standard, okay. Will you clarify with us? And it seems as if that would have to be a special meeting anyway. Is that
That's what he
correct?
said. If you guys could, we had talked about at the last meeting to call a special board meeting for June the 12th. And he was sitting there and you guys said, yeah.
Mr. Dunn, do you have something to add?
June the 12th is a Friday. The 10th is a Wednesday.
And I thought that it was, we were trying to correlate with our planning meeting, which is that the day of the planning meeting, June the 10th?
No, ma'am.
Well, if you would just clarify with Mr. Stafford, and if it requires a special meeting, then we'll act accordingly.
I'll make myself available over at the 12th.
Okay, all right, so if we could, board, keep all of the dates in mind. This will bring us to close determination for executive session. Is there a motion? Has been motioned by Mr. Latzenheiser. All in favor, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. At this time, we would ask that the public please leave the room so that we can determine if there are items to be brought up in executive session. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are now back in regular session. The motion was made by Mr. Spears. It was seconded by Mr. Jones, and the vote was unanimous for the approval of executive session minutes. The motion was made by Mr. Latzenheiser, seconded by Mr. Jones, for us to return to executive session, and the vote was unanimous. At this time, we are at to return to regular session. Thank you, Mr. Latzenheiser. At this time, board, we need to approve the claims docket for this month. This will require an action. Is there a motion to approve? It has been motioned by Mr. Jones.
No, Mr. Spears.
Did Mr. Spears? Has been motioned by Mr. Spears. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. At this time, we have reached the last item on our agenda, and that is for the adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? It has been motioned by Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Latzenheiser. There should not be any discussion. All in favor of the motion, please signify with your right hand. It is unanimous. Meeting is adjourned.